What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to the channel. Yesterday, the PTR for Dungeon Defenders Awakened did go live, and today we're going to do a rundown of everything involved. Now, there will be a link down to the patch notes if you prefer just to read through it yourself down in the description below. And additionally, this video is going to be just crazy long. So keep an eye out in the timeline below for chapters, and then timestamps, of course, will be down in the description. Let's go ahead and hop right on in. Now, first things first, what is a PTR? This is a public test realm. It gives us a look into the update to come and allows us to give Chromatic some feedback and do any sort of testing for any bugs we find. We can easily get those bugs reported, and then Chromatic, of course, can get the things squared away prior to launching this update. Now, with this in mind, this is a test server, so none of this progress is going to be saved over to your live account. So if you're just looking to get in and check out what is available in the PTR, you can do that by all means, but just remember to keep your expectations. Nothing is being saved, so don't grind a million hours into it unless you just want to. Now, how do you join the PTR? Well, the first thing you do is you jump on over to Steam. Now, everyone that owns Dungeon Defenders Awakened on Steam is eligible to play the PTR. It's pretty easy to jump into it. What you have to do is open up Steam, then go to your Steam library. You're going to want to go down to Dungeon Defenders Awakened and right-click on it and choose Properties. And then a window is going to be opening up with a Betas tab. There's going to be a drop-down box there where you can go ahead and select the DDA PTR, and that's it. Hit OK, and it will start downloading. Now, the first time you log onto the PTR, it is going to copy your live account over to the PTR account. Now, this is the account that will not be saved. However, it is a full live copy of your regular normal account, and your regular normal account is intact as it's a completely separate save file, and you don't have to worry about any sort of mixing or corruption with that particular save. Now, why would you play the PTR? Now, first off, you play the PTR because you want to see what's coming. I mean, that's pretty much all there is to it. We're all players here. We want to know what's upcoming, and this is an opportunity for us to check it out. Now, since we are going to give our feedback, and by playing the PTR for at least 30 minutes and then doing the survey can be accessed right in-game. If you hit Escape and then go down to the PTR survey, it will open it up in a browser window for you, and you can complete the survey. As long as you complete these steps by playing 30 minutes and completing the survey, you're going to earn an exclusive reward. The reward for this time around is the Forest Allies Wings. Now, this is how these rewards work. The last PTR, of course, there were the Eagle's Wings, which were available. Now, these are not per PTR, they are per your instance of running the PTR. So the first time that you play any PTR in Dungeon Defenders Awakened and do the 30 minutes and the survey, you're going to earn the first pair of wings. So if this is your very first PTR, you will be earning the Eagle's Wings by checking it out. Now, your second PTR, you're going to get the Forest Allies Wings. These are going to be available to anyone who does the 30 minutes, fills out the survey, if this is their second time completing in a PTR. Now, these are tiered like this, so there's no way for you to take one or the other. If it's your first time, you're getting Eagle's Wings. If this is your second time, you're going to get those Forest Allies Wings. And they actually look pretty cool here, especially on this rogue image. It definitely looks kind of snazzy for certain. Now, let's move on into the content. Now, first off, there is new tests. We know all of the various tests that unlock wings currently in the game. Well, there is now a fourth test. This is tiered. There's 3 parts to it. And this, of course, is the test of the Lycan. So it is a one-on-one fight with the Lycan King. Now, the rewards that are available from this particular test are currently not in-game yet, so we can't actually earn and look at the rewards for completing them. However, you can hop in and do the tests themselves and kind of see how it all works and give your feedback on it. Now, as far as general changes, Kickstarter weapons and armor names have been added into the game. So back when the Kickstarter was active, there was a tier that allowed you to name weapons or armor. These are now in-game. Now, I haven't found any yet. As soon as I find some, I'll be highlighting some of them to show you all what it's all about. But it's going to be items that drop in the game, and they're going to have the name that was chosen by the Kickstarter pledges and participants there. Now, all secondary abilities for all heroes will now trigger item effects. Now, what does this mean? Well, of course, for me personally, it's all about irradiate, right? Well, this means that every secondary is going to trigger irradiate. So the monk's secondary is going to trigger irradiate. The Squire's shield throw, which we'll get into in a moment, can trigger irradiate. The Huntress's grenade shot, the Apprentice's arcane surge, the monk's ranged, of course, the EV's grenade shot or arcane surge, the Warden's sprout, and the Rogue's ranged attack will all proc any of those item effects. Now, this alone is a pretty huge change, and it really brings a ton of viability to every single hero, without a doubt. For me personally, you guys know I'm a huge monk fanboy. I was absolutely thrilled to see this added into the monk. It brings the monk up to a tier where it is very competitive with all of the other heroes as far as an active DPS hero. So secondary abilities are all now triggering item effects. Now, mana was reworked. The mana cap, or the mana bar that we have, has been changed. Previously, it was a hidden value, but this was 250 mana points. Now, that has been simplified down to 100, so your mana is between 0 and 100, and it's more like a percentage. In light of that, all of the ability costs were changed. Everything has been divided by 2.5, basically, to bring it from 250 down to 100. Now, mana regen items remain the same, and pets remain the same. And one reason is there is a change to buff mana costs. I'm referring to the hero boost on the monk. We're referring to the Squire's boost, the Apprentice's overcharge. Now, previously, any of these abilities were a flat 10 mana per second cost. Now, this made it fairly easy for anyone who was willing to grind out the accessories to give 100% uptime to all these abilities, the hero boost, the Squire's blood boil, etc. Now, this is not what Chromatic had in mind, and they wanted to tweak that to get it to a little bit more of a reasonable level. And how they're doing that is we still have that same mana regen, even though the mana costs have been reduced. However, buffs now increase in mana cost for every 10 seconds that they are active. So a buff starts off at 4 mana per second. So if the Squire casts Blood Boil or the Monk casts Hero Boost, it's 4 mana per second. After 10 seconds, it's going to go up to 5 mana per second. After 20 seconds, it's going to go up to 6 mana per second, etc., etc. Now, this means that there is not going to be 100% uptime on mana anymore as far as keeping these buffs up through the entire wave, but it also means a few other things. Now, first off, if you want to stack mana regen, you can get it up to 15 per second. Now, 15 per second is going to be enough mana regen where I'm pretty sure every single map in the game, you're going to complete the wave before you run out of mana. Now, towards the end, if you keep that buff up through the entire wave, of course, the cost is going to be enormous. However, your mana regen is going to be so much, you're still going to make it to the end of the wave. That's going to be true for the majority, if not all, of the maps in the game. Now, additionally, this means is you no longer have to grind crazy amounts if you pay attention to your mana and you're willing to manage it. Since it's starting at 4 mana per second for 10 seconds, you theoretically only have to have 4 mana per second in regen if you toggle your buff off and then toggle it back on every 10 seconds. Now, every 10 seconds is a little tedious, but even if you looked at like every 20 seconds or every 30 seconds, you're going to be able to get to that mana drain cost on your accessories very, very quickly. So, although at first, when I first looked at this, I was kind of bummed. I'm like, man, I grinded out all this stuff, and I had the 100% uptime. However, it is now easier to get to that point as far as 100% uptime during the actual combat phase. Now, going through the projectile towers, and it's not just projectiles, it's things like spike blockades, bouncer blockades, slice and dices, etc. They have all had a straight up 20% increase in their power. This is referring to the spike blockade, the bouncer blockade, the slice and dice, the harpoon, the bowling ball, the magic missile, the fireball, the lightning tower, deadly striker towers, the beaming blossom. These were all increased by 20%, so straight up 20% boost in power. So these defenses are quite beast mode, no doubt. Now, there was also a change to target priorities and how your towers prioritize which enemies they attack first. And this is a very important change in the game, as it does really diversify a lot of the available strategies in Dungeon Defenders Awakened. Now, there's going to be two different sets of target priorities. There's a fodder target priority for fodder enemy-focused towers, and then there's a special enemy target priority for special enemy-focused towers. Now, the fodder list is going to be prioritized like this. The number 1 is Orc, number 2 is Archer, number 3 is Goblin, number 4 is Wyvern, Spider, Kobold, Dark Elf Mage, etc., and so on down the list. Now, the fodder-based towers are the Magic Missile Tower, the Fireball Tower, the Lightning Tower, the Bowling Ball Tower, and the Shroomy Pit. So in this example, if there was an Orc, an Archer, and a Goblin in the same lane all together, the Lightning Tower, for example, or we'll say the Magic Missile Tower, since it's single target, it's going to kill the Orc first, then it's going to kill the Archer, then it's going to kill the Goblin. Now, this is the fodder enemy tower priorities, so there is going to be a change, and you're going to want to look at your builds, and really, in most cases, you're going to want one of each of these types of towers in every lane. Now, of course, things like electric auras or, say, the explosive traps, they're all dependent on what's in them, and they're just AoE. If anything is in them, they're going to be getting hit. So those, of course, don't fall under these priorities. However, you are going to want one of each of these types in every single lane. Then the special enemy-focused towers are the DST, or Deadly Striker Tower, the Wisp Den, the Beaming Blossoms, the Sludge Launcher, and the Harpoon. Now, these particular towers are going to prioritize enemies like so. The Djinn first, Lycan, Sharkin, Spiders, Goblin Copters, and so on down the list here. This is the special enemy tower priority, and it applies to those special enemy-focused towers. So this is the target priority. Look through the list, see what you think. If you don't like this priority list, or you think something should be changed, then by all means let Chromatic know on the survey. That way they can get it dialed in exactly how the players want them. Now let's jump straight into the heroes. Now, first off, right to the Apprentice. Now, every single hero has had some changes to it, which to an extent is going to make them more viable. The Apprentice, for example, health scaling from Vitality has greatly increased. We all know one of the problems with the Apprentice is it's just too squishy. Now, before the update, if you have 5,000 Vitality, you'd have 230,000 HP in Nightmare or Massacre mode on your Apprentice. After this update, if you've got 5,000 Vitality, you're going to have 530,000 HP in Nightmare or Massacre mode. Now, this is huge. It's more than double, and it gives the Apprentice a bit more survivability for sure. Now, looking at the overcharge buff from the Apprentice, that was straight up buffed. It increased the attack rate scaler for towers by about 50%, and this kind of brought it in line with Tower Boost, making it as effective as Tower Boost. Now, another important aspect, it works with auras now too, so you can overcharge your auras and get that speed increased on it, or the increased damage if you're already at the cap. And as you see by the scalars here, that goes all the way up to 10,000. That was shown here for us. So previously, if you had 10,000 attack rate on a tower, it's going to increase the speed by 1.83. Now, when that overcharge buff hits, if you're over 10,000, it's going to increase it by 2.74. So a pretty big boost to overcharge. Now, Mana Bomb, you can now cast quickly while moving. The cast time was decreased to 1 second, all the way down from 3 seconds, and player movement no longer disables the casting. So you can run around and cast your Mana Bomb, and when you end that Mana Bomb, it's not going to lock you in place. Player movement was disabled previously as the Mana Bomb went off. You can now stay on the move and get that Mana Bomb blasted. The amount of camera shake when you did cast the Mana Bomb was reduced, and there was a bug with the damage fall off on it, and that was corrected as well. So fall off damage is now a minimum of 50% and scales linearly based on enemy distance from the epicenter of the cast. Now, as far as Apprentice Towers go, I gotta say this one right here, in my opinion, this one got the most love. The Magic Missile Tower is just an absolute beast. It is just wrecking faces right now, and I encourage everyone to get out there and check it out. Now, first off, it now has 360-degree targeting range. 360-degree targeting, so place it any direction you want, and the magic missiles are going to hit. Additionally, the projectile speed was increased. So the projectile speed got about a 50% buff, and it is just doing way better. Even in Massacre mode, the projectiles just scream and get to the targets very, very quickly. Additionally, the DU cost was reduced. They're now 2 DU. You can always afford 2 DU, right? So 2 DU, no doubt about it. You can spam up some magic missiles and get the job done. Now, the Elemental Blockade, the health of it got straight up doubled. The health was increased by about 100%. And in fact, right now, it is right in line with the Spike Blockade, where if you have the exact same amount of Fortify, the health between an Apprentice Elemental Blockade and the Squire Spike Blockade are 100% identical. So those are both exactly the same now, and it comes down to flavor. Do you want something that is a meaty-looking, dungeon-y type blockade? Well, then use the Squire Blockade. If you want something a little bit more mystical, which has that magic feel to it, then you're going to want to use the Apprentice Blockade, and they are both 100% exactly the same as far as their health amount. The DST, the Mighty Deadly Striker Tower, did get a damage buff of 30% while in Massacre mode. So part of that damage reduction is now a thing of the past, and the DST is screaming even more than before. Now the Huntress got some changes. Once again, straight to the Vitality. The Huntress had some survivability issues. The Huntress still feels a little bit squishy, not gonna lie. But scaling for Vitality did get increased substantially on the Huntress. Previously, if you had 5,000 Vitality in Nightmare Massacre mode, you would be at 265,000 HP on your Huntress. Currently, on the PTR, if you have 5,000 Vitality, you're going to be at 349,000 health and change in Nightmare Massacre mode. So it gives the Huntress a little bit more survivability. Now, Elvish Agility reduced the movement speed and the jump height to be easier to control. So, you could get yeeted off of maps pretty good if you had Elvish Agility up. That was reduced, so the movement speed and the jump height are both changed on Elvish Agility. However, you still get that crazy speed boost on your ranged weapons. The towers, the explosive trap or proximity mine trap, the base health of it was increased. So you're not going to have to worry about your trap charges running out quite as quick. As long as you have a decent amount of Fortify, you're going to be able to make it through every single wave without having to worry about repairing. And the amount of charges on that particular trap was run up. The base reset time is now 10 seconds, where the base used to be 13.875. So there's also a little bit of a boost to the attack speed of the explosive traps. The Inferno Trap increased base damage from 52 to 65, also increasing the scalar from 0.95 to 1.15. So the Inferno Traps are now very much in line with the Lightning Auras as far as damage output goes. So if you take the Lightning Aura gear on your Monk and take that amount of power and rate and put that exact amount of power and rate on an Inferno Trap, they're going to be doing very, very comparable numbers. The Thunder Spike Trap, the scalar was increased on that as well, and this is now more in line with the Wisp Den and the DST. The Thunder Spike Trap, of course, hits like an absolute truck, and this scalar got increased as well to come up to par with those other defenses. Now moving over to the Monkaliciousness, the Monk got a vitality boost. Oh, yes. This one is just so good, y'all, because the Monk was right on the verge of greatness before, and this now brings the Monk up to just badassery like you would not believe. Now, previously, on the Monk, if you had 5,000 vitality in Nightmare Massacre mode, you'd have 354,000 health. Now, with 5,000 vitality, you now have 646,000 health, so almost 300,000 more HP for the exact same amount of vitality. This gives the Monk a ton more survivability. Now, that little negligible heal that a lot of people probably didn't even know was there on the hero boost from the Monk has been removed. To be honest with you, it was such a small amount that it didn't, like I said, most people didn't even know they were getting some sort of a heal while the hero boost was active. Now, the speed boost with the hero boost did get reduced. Now, you know, we all want to go fast. There's no doubt about it. I love going fast on my Monk. I'm sure everyone who plays a Monk out there has gone off a map once or twice, though, as the ground speed was a little bit over the top on the Monk, and the Monk's hero boost did get reduced in ground speed. Now, additionally, this only applies to the Monk that casts it, and no longer applies to other players. So yeet all your friends off the map right now on live, because you're not going to be able to do it when this update comes. And really, that was a source of more trolling players than it was of helping players. So I think this is a move that I don't really see anybody disagreeing with this one. But let me know down in the comments below if you think it should have remained. Personally, I am good with it. Now, with the tower boost, there was a very minor armor buff on your towers when they were boosted. This has been removed. It was such a negligible amount that, once again, it's just like the hero boost. Most players probably didn't even realize it was there, so this being removed is just a non-issue. Now we go down to the towers of the Monk. The Enrage Aura is more likely to trigger a fight between enemies. So the Enrage Aura is actually in really good shape. Ogres, of course, will attack the enraged enemies, and they will actually turn around and walk back up lane to enemies that are enraged. So the Enrage Aura is worth a look for every player out there, no doubt about it. Now, the Enrage Aura does not apply to Sharkin or Lycan. So if a Sharkin or Lycan goes through the Rage Aura, it's not going to do anything to them. However, it is going to enrage the rest of the pack. The amount that upgrading scales the duration was reduced by 50% on the Enrage itself, and that kind of increases for the effect triggering more frequently. Now moving on along to the EV. The EV was pretty stout before, but she got a little bit of a health buff. Previously, with 5,000 vitality, the EV had 464,000 health in Nightmare and Massacre. Now with 5,000 vitality, the EV has 563,000 health in Nightmare and Massacre. So a buff of about 100,000 health with the same amount of vitality stat on the EV. Now, movement speed was slightly increased by about 5%, so you can get around just a little bit quicker on the EV. Now, the decoy was changed. Damage now uses the element of the equipped weapon, meaning if you have a fusion weapon equipped, your decoy is now going to do fusion damage when it explodes. The damage radius has been increased by 50%. The damage amount was increased by 20%, and the damage of the health of the decoy itself was increased by 25%. Now, when your decoy goes off, it's going to launch players into the air and reduce gravity. So this is going to give the EV a little bit more of a movement ability. And then the cooldown on it was increased from 3 seconds, up to 5 seconds. So it now has a 5-second cooldown. Now, as far as EV towers, the proton beam base damage was increased. Holy smokies! The proton beam was wrecking some faces and melting off the feet of all of the bads before, and it got a damage buff. Oh yeah, proton beams for life. Now, additionally, the diameter was increased. Now, what does this mean? Well, it means your proton beam is going to be hitting outside of its visual hitbox. So you see that line from the proton beam itself. The proton beam is still going to hit enemies that are outside of that line as long as they are in range. And it got a 100% increase, so its range was basically doubled. Shock beams. The reset time on shock beams was reduced from 3 seconds down to 2 seconds. And then moving on to the Squire. Oh my gosh. Well, the Squire, everyone that's been playing knows that the Squire was absolutely ridiculous prior to this PTR hitting. The Squire was without a doubt the highest DPS hero in the game. The Squire is now even better. Somebody over there, Chromatic, likes their Squires, no doubt, because the Squire, as far as an active hero, got a beastie buff. Now, first off, Blood Boil. Slightly reduced the amount of damage gained from the ability stat on Blood Boil. I personally have not noticed a significant difference with this. I've got to do some more testing back and forth between live and the PTR to see exactly what this reduction is, but I haven't noticed anything significant. Now, the secondary attack, and here is the most exciting thing. The block was removed. Well, what? Oh my god, how do you get rid of block? And how you get rid of block is you turn the Squire into Captain America and give him a shield throw. So the Squire now has a shield throw that bounces between enemies and wrecks the faces. The Squire throws the shield exactly where you're aiming, just like a ranged weapon. The damage is going to scale off your weapon damage, your hero damage, and your attack stat. So those three things are what scales up this shield. So having a good weapon with the weapon damage upgraded on that weapon, and then hero damage and attack gets that scaled up. Now the element is going to be based on the equipped main weapon, which means if you have a fusion element, your shield throw is going to be doing fusion damage. The cooldown is going to start immediately, and once again, it bounces off of enemies. It will bounce up to 3 total targets, so 2 additional bounces. Additionally, if you throw it into a wall, it's going to bounce off of a wall and look for a target. It will bounce 2 times for 3 total target hits just by hitting a wall as well. The shield toss is quite fun, and I am not a big melee guy. You all know that, and I played the Squire most of the day yesterday because I just couldn't get enough of that shield toss. There's no doubt about it. Now the Squire's towers. Here's a big one, y'all. Their DU was reduced to 1. So they have the exact same health as the Apprentice's blockade now, but the Spike blockade is reduced to 1 DU. So if you feel like you need a wall, come on, you got some options now. Throw some walls out there. The Harpoon Tower was reduced. It's no longer 6 DU, it is now 5 DU. The enemy hitbox size was increased, so the Harpoon Tower is going to hit additional enemies. Now, the Harpoon pierces, of course, so it goes through the pack, but with the larger hitboxes of enemies, the Harpoon Tower is going to do damage to more enemies there. Now, the environmental hitbox was decreased to cause less unintended hits. So you're not going to see as many of those shots taken into stairs or walls or any area where it was really close on the line of sight. You're going to see a little reduction in that on the Harpoon Tower. Now, the Harpoon Tower no longer sticks in walls as well. The Harpoon Tower is just going to go away after it shoots, and this is going to help increase the game's performance. The Bowling Ball Tower. Bowling balls now explode on impact with the first enemy they hit. Oh, man. Yeah, bowling balls are exploding, y'all, and this is worth a look. I played with bowling balls a bit. It's always fun to make a ball pit somewhere. Now, remember, the bowling balls are a fodder-type defense. They're going to explode and take out massive amounts of enemies, so they're going to go into the pack. So combining the bowling balls with something that is more designed for those special enemies is just a winning combination, and the Bowling Ball Tower is going to give you a nice bit of AoE to kind of clear out all of those fodder mobs in the lanes. The Slice and Dice Tower. The cost was reduced. Slice and Dice is now 4 DU. But what else? The Slice and Dice's range was increased during the spin-up activation and the damage dealt. The Slice and Dice, I'm going to be playing around with this one over the next few days because I just feel like it could potentially be something really, really fun that we could get some super fun builds with. Now, what's the downside of the Slice and Dice? Well, I mean, you're going to get a lot more value out of it if you give it a Strength Drain Aura, a Reflect Beam, and, of course, a Buff Beam. So there is a reduction in DU, but to use them really well, you're going to want to buff those Slice and Dices still, but it is well worth a look. The Bouncer Blockade. The Bouncer Blockade's DU got cut in half. It's now 2 DU. You can afford 2 DU for a Bouncer, y'all. And there is lots and lots of low-cost blockades or walls that can be used now throughout the game. Now on to the Warden. What has been the one thing on the Warden that hasn't screamed, oh my god, look at this? Well, it's the Shroomy Pit. And the Shroomy Pit was probably the most hyped defense prior to the Warden releasing. The Shroomy Pit's health was increased by 300%. Now, this was a big deal because those Shroomy Pits were really draining charges fast and making it a real maintenance nightmare to keep up on them. You had to constantly repair them, upgrade them. If you didn't have a decent amount of Fortify stat, you could be losing them during waves just from running out of charges. So the Shroomy Pit's health was tripled. So 300% increase on health. Additionally, their range was increased by 30%. So they're going to be running a lot farther down those lanes to get to their targets. Now, the Shroomy Pit is not something you're going to want to spam other than just for memes, as they do have a chaining issue, where if 3 Shroomies are running down the lane, the first one is going to get to the targets, it's going to blow them all up, the other 2 are just going to explode and hit nothing. So the ideal use for a Shroomy Pit is maybe 1 Shroomy Pit per lane, and give yourself a nice little bit of explosive AoE clear from those Shroomies running out and blasting the faces. Now, there was a bunch of bug fixes as well. I'm not going to go through them. Those will all be linked in those patch note descriptions down below. And then overall, remember, this is a PTR. This one was all about bringing heroes up to strength, some of them quite a bit, to provide a little bit more versatility in what's going on. Now, this is just day 1 of the PTR is now over, so the PTR still has a ways to go. We don't know how long it's going to run. However, we can expect multiple updates during the PTR based off of your feedback. Now, with that in mind, get your feedback in, y'all, or it doesn't do anything. So do the survey. Feel free to do the survey right now. Play the game on day 1. Do the survey, because there is more than likely going to be multiple surveys that get posted up. So get your info in so Chromatic can do what they got to do to make these heroes and defenses a little closer to what we want. So that is it for the full enchilada on the Dungeon Defenders Awaken PTR. I'm going to be streaming it live for quite a while today over on Twitch, so make sure to swing on by and join me there. But that is about it. Let me know what you guys think. Anybody that's checked out the PTR, tell me what you think down in the comments below. What's been your favorite thing? What thing do you think needs a little bit more love? Throw it down in the comments and let me know. But that will do it for now. Swing by later on and check me out on Twitch and potentially win yourself a Juicy Head Flare for DD2 or a Juicy Fruit Pet for Dungeon Defenders Awakened. But that will get it for now. Thanks again, and I will see ya next time around. Take it easy.